The second general session of the UVA College of Wise Fall Regional Conference will now come to order. It is my pleasure to introduce Don Green, Executive Director and Vice President of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Don Green, a former banker, has been the Executive Director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation since 2000. Don originated the Keys for Success course based on Napoleon Hill's principles for success. Don has traveled worldwide to teach Hill's philosophy for success. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Don Green.
Thank you very much. Thank all of you for being here. I'd like to welcome each of you to Napoleon Hill Day 2015. Today, Napoleon would have been 132 years old, and he's affected people all over the world. It's absolutely unbelievable. We appreciate Chancellor Henry and the college for sponsoring this event each year. We'd like to thank the officers of the FBLA for sharing their time with us. Right now, I would like to recognize the trustees. We got the chair, Phil Fuentes, and Jim Olson, Jimmy Hill, grandson, and I'll introduce your speaker in a few minutes. Also, the Hill family are here. They're sitting on the front, some up in there, the grandchildren. Some of the grandchildren have never been here. But in meeting the Hill family, I'm amazed at meeting the children, the grandchildren, all of the success stories. They've followed basically the principle of Napoleon Hill. It's just amazing. Sometimes I feel a little bitty talking to them because of the amount of education and their experience in life. So, and they travel from all over to be here with us. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that they take time out of their schedule. And right now, I would like to introduce Jack Kennedy, who's going to read a proclamation from the governor. Jack.
Thank you, Don. It's always an important day to come celebrate and fet Napoleon Hill. And certainly Don Green has been the #1 evangelical of Napoleon Hill philosophy and impacted a lot of lives, particularly carrying on the tradition of Napoleon Hill. Each year, it has been an honor and pleasure to communicate with the governor, either my Chief Deputy Melanie Siger or myself, in obtaining a certificate of recognition for Virginia, honoring Napoleon Hill, and if you would bear with me. By virtue of the authority vested in the Constitution of Virginia and the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, there is hereby officially recognized Napoleon Hill Day. Whereas Napoleon Hill was born on October 26th in Wise County, Virginia, and whereas Napoleon Hill is known throughout the world as one of the earliest writers of the modern genre of personal success literature. And whereas Napoleon Hill's writings outline a philosophy of success that includes the importance of clear goals, focused determination, persistence, ethical dealings with others, and maintaining a positive attitude. And whereas Napoleon Hill exemplified Virginia values such as hard work, commitment, and purposeful living. And whereas he established the Napoleon Hill Foundation as a nonprofit educational institution with the mission of perpetuating his philosophy of leadership, self-motivation, and individual achievement. And whereas the Commonwealth is pleased to recognize Napoleon Hill for his teachings, which contribute greatly to Virginia and the nation. Now, therefore, I, Terrence R. McCullough, do hereby recognize October 26, 2015 as Napoleon Hill Day in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I call this observance to the attention of all Virginians. Thank you.
I failed to introduce Bob Johnson. He's on board. He's also our corporate attorney. He keeps me out of jail. And Phil Fuentes is sitting out in the audience with you guys. but I appreciate them very much, as I said, and with the Hill family. Our speaker, you're really in for a treat, and I'm not going to take 20 minutes to introduce him, but I want you, all the students, to know this guy's been in, he's flown in here from Thailand and South Korea. He's been up in the air many, many hours, and I know I've made that trip a few times, and you talk about 30 and 40-hour flights in an airplane. It's nice to ride for a few hours, but after a while, and there's nothing you can do but get up and pace the floor and go to the bathroom. So it's tiresome, even at a young age. But I would like to introduce our speaker, Mr. Holton Buggs. He's an executive vice president of Organo Gold. He's built a global distribution platform of 1.2 million people. Under his guidance, he's developed the organization of millionaires spread out all over 44 countries. He's also a master trainer and speaker. He's born and raised in Tampa, Florida. He learned at a very early age the benefits of being an entrepreneur. After graduating from high school, he earned a football scholarship at Texas Southern University, where his career seemed promising. They tell me it was pretty good. Until he injured his leg. He was introduced to the industry of network marketing. After years of being a student in the industry and business world, Holton is now the top earning home-based business distributor in the world. If I told you how much he made, he'd shoot me. In addition to his work with OG, Hilton has expanded his brand by creating a portfolio which includes his own real estate development company, a recording label, music publishing business, television program production enterprise. He's a venture capitalist. His best-selling auto book, Cash Cow, has been reviewed as one of the most influential business tools for distributors. Holton has been featured in Billionaire edition of Millionaire magazine, and is the first distributor to be on the cover of Networking Time magazine. He's also the co-author of Conversation on Success with Jim Rohn. Holton's knowledge of the industry, high morale standards, and business ethics, and his passion to share with those willing to learn have won him numerous awards and constant requests. He's been married for 23 years and his father of one child. And I learned when I listened to Holton, if I listened to him 100 times, I learned. And I'd hope that you cut your ears open and can learn and take something from it, because we have to learn from others. And Holton is a mighty good example to learn from. Holton.
Good morning, everybody. How are we doing this morning? Good morning. Good. Well, I'm excited to be here. This is pretty much the first time I've had some sleep last night, and probably about almost 2 weeks. As Mr. Don Green said, I just come back from Thailand, and he told me, he says, listen, we're going to give you 1 minute for every hour that you fly from Thailand back here to Virginia. So it was a little over a 20-hour flight, so I get about 20 minutes here to talk with everyone. But I'm actually honored to be here on Napoleon Hill Day. I want to thank all the entire board, Dr. J.B. Hill. I want to thank Judith, Don Green, Chino, the entire board. I want to thank everyone who's here today, all the faculty and all the students that we have. This is a little different element for me. I was talking to Judith in the back, and I told her, I said, listen, this is the second time I've actually accepted an invitation to speak to a group of people outside of what it is that I do, outside of my profession. So she said, well, Holton, just be you. I said, well, I kind of know how to be me. I'm real good at that. And she says, well, just kind of, you've got a teenage son, don't you? And I said, yeah, I do. She says, well, he's a senior in high school. I said, yeah, he's a senior in high school. Well, a lot of these kids are seniors and they're entrepreneurs, so just talk to them like you would talk to your son. I said, no problem. So I want to talk to you like I talk to my son. And the first question I have for you is, did you guys clean up your room this morning? That's one of the first questions I ask my son every single morning for the last, I don't know how many years, but no, he's a senior in high school right now, 18 years old, and he's the only son that we have, and so it's going to be pretty empty around the house when he goes off to college. But my role today really was to come and share a little bit of my story. As Don Green introduced me, I was sitting back and I was almost impressed because I didn't know I had done all those things that's on that paper. As I don't have a chance, most often at all to kind of reflect on what it is that I've done, because I'm always focused on what I'm about to do. And that's one of the messages that I want to give each and every one of you as well. Yeah, you guys have accomplished some things in high school and even before then, many of the accomplishments, but your greatest accomplishments are going to be some of the things that you're going to accomplish in the future. My background is I don't want to say it was unique. My background is I guess it's a varied background. It's a story that many people hear all the time, but I was born and raised in Tampa, Florida, as Don mentioned. And I was born with a large family, not necessarily a lot of brothers and sisters, but I was born around a large family. We're a very close-knit family, and I was born in the area that was called Ponce de Leon Project. It was a housing project. We were poor, and I didn't know it. And I didn't know I was poor until I actually went to college and got around people who had some stuff, and that's when I realized, Mom, I called back, why didn't you tell me we were poor? And, but I had no idea that we were poor, because we had a lot of love that we had. I grew up and lived in a 600 square foot home. It was 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. But I tell people there was about 20,000 square feet of love that was in that home. And that was one of the biggest reasons, I'll tell you right now, for some of the accomplishments that I've actually had. But I never forget, I was the first person in my family to go to college. Nobody in my family had gone to college, and I was the first person to do that. My mom had told me a long time ago, she said, son, listen, if you ever want to be successful, go to school, get a good education, and so you can get a good job. And that was kind of what everybody had already told her, which she never was able to do it. My dad was never able to do it. Nobody in my family was able to do it. So here I am, I'm listening to my mom, and so I figured I'd go out and get some good grades, which I did. And I was pretty good at carrying a football as well, and so they gave me this scholarship. And I was really excited. You know, everybody celebrated. I'm the first person in the family to go to college. And then I get to college, and I realized that I wanted to be something different than an engineer. I went to school, honestly, to play football. That was really my goal. I wanted to play professional football, and then I busted up my shoulders. And you don't see too many people playing on Sundays with broke shoulders. So I fell back on my scholarship, and I started studying real hard, and I got an internship. And I want to share with you what changed and what impacted my life to actually be able to accomplish some of the things that I've been able to do. I was working at an internship. I was working in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. I'll never forget it. And I'm here at this big plant. I'm watching all of these engineers, and I'm watching these people who were doing what it was that I figured I would do if I became an engineer. And they were doing all this research, and I'm one of these people that's kind of, I gotta be around people. I just love people. I have to be around people all the time. I'm an out-of-the-box type of person, people person. I get kind of loud every now and then, and I'm watching everybody follow all of the rules, and they were doing all of the things, and it was just seemed like every day that I was there was the exact same thing. Now, I'm not discouraging anybody from becoming an engineer, but I realized after one summer working there that if I was going to do this for the next 40 years, work in a facility, work in a research lab, and wear this white coat every single day, that was going to be a little boring for me. And I automatically shifted gears, and I went out, and I'll never forget, during my internship, and I got a job in sales. And this is when everything kind of clicked for me in terms of what I needed to do to prepare myself for my next chapter. And I had no idea. You know, when you're that young, you're in college or whatever it is, you really don't have a great idea on what you really want to do because you've never experienced it before. I thought I wanted to be an engineer, but there was no engineers in my family. I didn't know any engineers. And really and honestly, the only reason I went for engineering, like I said, I went for college. And I'll never forget, I talked to my college counselor. They said, well, you got to pick a major. And I said, no problem, I'll pick a major. They said, you have any idea what it is you want to do? And I said, well, I like houses, and I like drawing and designing houses. They said, well, we don't have the School of Architecture here. And so they gave me this book. And I'll never forget, it's a true story. They gave me this book. And I was thumbing through the book to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I get to this page, and it says Environmental Engineering Technology. And I say, the title's long, the money must be long, so this is what I'm going to do. Okay? And that was it. So I went to school for that, and I did real good. But when I got to that internship, I realized, well, this is not what I want to do. And so I got a job, and I got a nighttime job. I didn't have to. I got a nighttime job, and I got that job working in sales. And I realized that when I was working in sales, that I was getting paid according to my performance. And I wasn't getting paid the same thing as everybody else. If I did a little bit more, sold a little bit more, I earned a little bit more. So I was the one who worked part-time, 6 to 9, and I was selling electronics. And I was earning more money at that time than people who were working a full-time job. I said, wow, I want to be involved in sales. And I figured out that my personality was really designed around sales, and my personality was designed around entrepreneurship, but I had one challenge. And this is the challenge that I had, and this is one of the biggest challenges that I talked to my son about. I was 18 years of age, and at 18 right now, my son has started maybe his 4th business. He owns a company right now, and he's got some huge goals, and I'll tell you about them. But he's 18 years of age right now, and I'm extremely proud of him because the things that I went through, the things that I had to go through, I was able to share with him my story, and he was able to learn from my story. And I look at where he is today at 18, and I said, wow, at 18 years of age, in school right now, I didn't accomplish what he had accomplished until I was late in my 20s. I mean, very, very, very late in my 20s. But I never forget when I was in, it started for me, whereas it almost robbed me of being an entrepreneur. It started for me in kindergarten, preschool kindergarten. And I never forget, during those years that I was in preschool, I was in kindergarten, and I started to go to 1st grade. I was educated by a group of people that told me, hey, Holton, listen, they would give me the lesson and they'd say, can you trace this picture here? And I traced the picture, and I color the bear green, or I color the bear purple, or whatever it was, and I never forget, I turned the paper in, and the teacher would say, well, listen, bears aren't green, bears aren't purple. And what they were doing at that moment is they were actually conforming me to what they believed the world should look like. And I never forget as well that one of the things that motivated me during that time, and I was really trying to spread my wings at this time, I had no idea, but this is what almost made me give up or not pursue my dream as an entrepreneur. That one of the things that I got really inspired by, I love recognition. I love to be out front. I love to get recognized for the things that I wanted to do. And one of the biggest things that I wanted to do when I was just a little kid coming up in school was leading the line to lunch. They'd always stand us up in a line, and whoever was the first person at lunch get to lead the line. And I was always upset that I wasn't the leader. The reason I wasn't the leader is because I never earned the red star. And the only way you earn a red star is you got to do all your assignments. You got to do them to the same specifications as the teacher instructed. And they'd always, you know, I never forget doing tracing and doing drawing and all that kind of stuff. And I would never draw, I would never trace the way they did, because I would sit and I would imagine things much differently. And I'd imagine different colors, I'd imagine different shapes, and it made sense to me, but I give it to this teacher, and that teacher's responsibility that day was to teach what the curriculum was designed for. They weren't there to teach entrepreneurs. They weren't there to teach thinkers. They weren't there to teach people who thought out of the box. They weren't there to teach people like me who came from Ponce de Leon projects, who nobody had ever experienced college in my family. They weren't there to teach a person how to become an entrepreneur, how to think outside the box. And so here I was conforming for a while, and the only reason I was conforming is just so I can get me a red star. And I would get that red star, and I'd lead the line, and I'd go back, and I was doing all of that, and I was conforming. And what they were doing is they were teaching me how to just follow the rules. And I'm not saying you should be here to break the rules. That's not what I'm saying. If there's rules that are out there, you should follow those rules. But I can tell you right now that if I actually followed the path that everybody else followed, if I had done the things the way everything was supposed to have been done, I can tell you right now I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be flying back from Thailand. Mr. Don Green wouldn't have been able to read the things on that list that he's actually read about some of my accomplishments, because I broke a lot of the rules. And I'm not talking about the rules that other people said. I broke the rules, those silent rules that people put on you, the expectations that are going to be on you to do it exactly as somebody else has done it. You know, I'll never forget, I heard a story before, and there was a lady, this young lady, and she was actually preparing Christmas dinner with her little daughter. And as they were preparing Christmas dinner for her daughter noticed that every Christmas that the mom, when they prepared, they would get ready to bake the ham, the mom would actually cut the end of the bone off of the ham. She says, "Mommy, why in the world did you cut the bone off the ham?" She said, "Well, because, you know, my mom cut the bone off the ham, and so you have to ask her when she comes over for Thanksgiving dinner." And so when the grandma came over, the little girl asked her, "Grandma, Mommy told me to ask you, why is it that you cut the bone off of the end of the ham?" She said, well, my mom did the same thing. So when great grandma comes over to the house, you have to ask her, why did she cut the bone off the end of the ham? So great grandma comes over to the house, little girl asks her, say, great grandma, tell me, grandma told me that she cuts the bone off the ham because you did it. My mom does it because she did it. And she says, can you tell me why is it that we've got this tradition of cutting the end of the bone off the ham? Well, the great grandma said, well, baby, when I was just growing up, see, our ovens were only this small. And so we had to cut the bone off the end of the ham just to fit the ham inside the oven. And so 3 generations later, the mother's cutting the bone off and teaching the daughter to cut the bone off on conditions that were actually set generations ago. And so what I'm here to tell you is right now, things are a little different. And I know sometimes faculty and some of your teachers will tell you how things were when they went to school. And I tell my son the same thing, but today, what you're finding today, you're finding entrepreneurs becoming younger and younger and younger. You're finding billionaires today becoming younger and younger and younger. And the reason why is because somebody had an opportunity and somebody had enough courage to say, you know what, maybe I don't have to trace within the lines. Maybe bears can be green. Maybe turtles can be purple. Maybe cows can be pink or whatever it is that you want to. And you look now, you look at all of the accomplishments, you look at all the technology that we have today, and what if those people followed the same path? What if they did things the way that their grandparents and their parents did them? And so for me, one of the biggest things that I fight for is freedom. And that's that freedom of expression, that's that freedom of thought process, that's that freedom of being able to be an entrepreneur. And so what I started to do is I started to cut my teeth in entrepreneurship. And I knew I was born to be an entrepreneur because I'll never forget in 5th grade, I started my first company. In 5th grade, I actually would pop popcorn early in the morning, and I would bag it up, and I would take it to school, and I'd sell it for 25 cents a bag. I'd stop by the corner store and buy a little big blow candy that was a penny, and I'd sell it for a nickel. And I was making huge profits at the time. Why? Because my grandfather bought me a bicycle. And he bought me a bicycle with a banana seat on it, and at that time, banana seats weren't cool. How many of you know what a banana seat is? Okay, most of the adults are raising their hand. The kids don't know what a banana seat's one of those long seats, about 3 or 4, 5 or 6 people can sit on it. And you don't, you can't approach a girlfriend that you like with a banana seat. It's just not gonna work out. So I'm like, I want a bicycle that reflects my personality. So I started my first business in the 5th grade. And I continued to do it on and on and on in high school. I'll never forget. And don't you guys try this. I just gotta tell you what I did. Don't do this in high school. But I never forget, they were selling candy, to raise money. When they sold candy. They sold candy for the bands to raise money for the performing arts department. They sold candy for the band. Now my father owned a grocery store. So we had a wholesale account to Costco. And here I wanted a new car. Now I'm a high school kid. I wanted to buy my own car. My parents never gave me an allowance. I never got paid to do anything. I never got paid to do the dishes. All of my other friends, they got paid to do all kinds of stuff. They had new cars, and like I said, we were poor, and I just didn't know it, but I wanted my own. And so I'll never forget, I'm seeing everybody sell this candy. I'm like, okay, well, hold on for a second. Why are you guys selling candy? They said, well, we're here to raise funds. What are you raising funds for? Well, we want to raise funds for new equipment for the band. I was like, okay, well, great. I want to raise funds too. I wanted to raise funds for my new automobile. And so when my dad would go to the store, to Costco, to grab candy and everything for our store, I would go along with him and say, Dad, hey, listen, I want to buy some stuff as well. So I bought me some stuff. I bought me some candy. I'll never forget M&M's. I would buy M&M's, Bar None. I would buy Snickers, and I would buy Twix candy. And I'd take it to school. And while everybody else was selling candy and raising funds, I didn't think it was a bad thing. So I was raising my own funds as well. And then I noticed that I was pretty good at raising funds. But I also noticed that there were more classrooms of people who had sweet tooths than I was in. I only had 7 classes. So I'll never forget my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. My wife and I have been together since she was 12 and I was 13. That's quite some time. I thought I was on to something until I heard about a couple that's here, Mr. and Mrs. Glenn Hill, who's celebrating their 75th wedding anniversary. Let's give them a big round of applause. 75 years married. And so my wife, I told her, she was my girlfriend at the time. I knew she'd be my wife at some point in time. But I told her, I said, listen, this ride to work that you get in this car, I said, you want to continue getting this ride? She said, of course I do. I don't want to ride the bus. I said, well, here's a box of M&M's. And well, this is what I need. I need 50 cents per pack of M&Ms. See me at the end of class if you want to continue getting the ride. She became my #1 salesperson. And I actually employed probably about 8 or 9 different students to go out and sell candy. And I was also a barber. I was a neighborhood barber for children and kids, and I would actually offer them free haircuts, and they would actually sell candy for me. And so here I was, I raised enough money, I bought myself a car, and I'm like, this entrepreneurship thing is really starting to kick in, it's starting to work. But here I was, again, I was thinking outside of the box. I wasn't conforming to the trace lines that the teacher had actually told me to do. And so now, here it is, I actually get a phone call from the dean, and they say, hey, listen, we hear that you've got a ring going on. I'm like, what do you mean? They say, you've got a candy ring going on. I say, yeah, I'm raising funds for my new car. I said, matter of fact, it's out there. And that was when, that was the end of my ring. That got shut down. But I had caught the bug. I caught the bug of being able to be productive. I caught the bug of being able to take a product, a service, or something, and go out there to the marketplace, compete for it, and be able to make a profit. And it just felt good being able to make a profit. And then after I finished school, I'll never forget, I finished school and I decided I was, like I mentioned, I was not going to be an engineer, so I started my own company. And that was when life actually settled in. I started a furniture company. And when I started this furniture company, I knew nothing about furniture. I knew zero about furniture. I had no knowledge of the furniture business whatsoever. And but I saw saw an opportunity, and I actually took advantage of it. I went to my grandmother, and I actually took a loan from my grandmother. And I went to the bank, I leveraged that money, and I actually got enough money to buy all of my inventory, to start a lease. And here I was, I'm now a real entrepreneur, my first traditional business, because I heard that if you really want to be successful, you got to have a traditional business. You got to have a storefront. So I go out and I have a storefront, and I never forget opening my business. I took every single dime that I had, and I started this company. When we started this company, I was really excited. I just knew the money was going to be rolling in. I put this furniture store in the second highest income per capita district in Houston, Texas. And I learned how to play solitaire during that time because I had no customers coming into my store, and I'm just sitting there clicking on a computer, and I could probably beat anybody in solitaire. I mean, I could do it real quick because that's all I did, play solitaire. 2 months I was out of business. I lasted 2 months in that company. 2 months. And I never forget having to take a big truck in the middle of the night just to go out and get all of my furniture. And the reason being is because I knew I had to sell that furniture to get my grandmother her money back. And she didn't ask for it back, but there's no way in the world I could lose her money and have them take all the inventory. So I'll never forget, middle of the night, I go out, have an idea. I went in the middle of the night, got all of my furniture out of that store. I called the Klein brothers who actually offered me the lease, let them know that I wasn't going to be able to honor my obligation. I had a $300,000 lease obligation. I don't know what happened, but they let me out of the lease anyway. And I got my furniture. And here I was. I have another out-of-the-box idea. Nobody had ever taught me this, but here it is. Again, I'm looking at elephants as pink. I'm looking at the pink elephant, and I'm saying to myself, why do I have to have a store? People want to buy furniture. Let me go take the furniture to them. So I took all of my inventory, and I went out on the street corner. And I set out all of my inventory. Now here's hand-carved mahogany furniture, imported from Indonesia. Very expensive furniture. Just to give you an idea, my dining chairs were $1,000 per chair, is what they call. So dining table was $10,000 in my store. And you probably can see now why I didn't sell much, right? And I set all of my furniture out on the street corner one day, and the only purpose was to really liquidate, just almost give the furniture away, make a little small profit, and find another opportunity. But remember, I'm looking at this elephant that's pink. I don't look at the elephant like everybody else. At the end of that day, I made over $4,000 in profit. It took me about 7 hours to do it, and I had zero expenses outside of a $70 expense for a budget truck. I said, hold on for a second. I made $4,000 in profit, and I'm trying to go out of business. So let me try this once again. I come back out the next weekend. I didn't buy as much furniture because I didn't want to get myself into a situation that I didn't know how it was going to end up. But I bought a little bit more inventory, so I go back out and I make about $3,000. Next weekend, I make about $2,000. And I realized that I could actually do more furniture sales on a street corner than I could having this very expensive store, this real big sign. And what I did for about 5 years is I took my furniture store and I would take it to different places within Houston. And here I was, I had a furniture store that had no boundaries. I had no geographical limitations as to where I could sell furniture, and I worked 2 days a week selling furniture, and that was when I learned to play golf, because I played golf 5 days a week during the weekday, and I sold furniture on the weekends. And here I was making a couple $100,000 selling furniture 2 days a week. $70 truck, no employees whatsoever. Why? Because my elephant was pink, and I had a chance to pursue, and I had a chance to continue to draw that pink elephant. And I never forget what happened is a few years later, life happened again. When life happened again, things changed in Indonesia where I was importing my furniture. We were importing all kind of furniture. I had multiple locations going. I had somebody else on one corner selling street furniture. People would ask me, and they'd come up to me and say, "This poor guy, you're out here peddling this furniture in the heat. You know, you should think about getting a store." And they had no idea, what that really, I just come from that environment. And Indonesia went to war, the value of the currency actually dropped, and the prices went up, and I found myself $250,000 in personal debt. I was 45 days away from foreclosure. They just came and repossessed my car. End of the furniture era is here. It's done, it's gone. And I'm wondering, what am I gonna do now? I gave up my engineering. I didn't go out and do that, didn't pursue that. I don't have a license for it. My furniture business is gone. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should have done, maybe I should have studied more. Maybe I should have gone ahead and pursued engineering. And I'm thinking of this just for one little small moment. But I like freedom. I love the idea and I love the concept of freedom. And I never forget, these were some of the lowest times that I've had. I want to share with all of you here, that you're going to have some low times. You're going to have some opportunities that fail. And when I look back now, Don Green gave you all of these different businesses that I have. I own 16 different corporations today. But I can tell you right now, people look and they get so impressed with what I have and what we've accomplished right now. And I want to share with you, over 90% of every business I've ever started has failed. And I've lost fortunes. And one of my businesses, I started a restaurant 3 or 4 years ago. And if you ever want to do that, get that out of your system as well. Go ahead and do it. Everybody's got to do it. I started a restaurant, a very nice high-end restaurant. It was a crafted cocktail lounge, and it was 2-story. It was very plush, and on weekends we had the biggest crowd. I mean, it was, people would come there and they knew that I was the majority owner of this company. They said, "Man, you guys must be making a fortune." And I think it's been 4 years ago now, and I'm still waiting on the first dollar profit. Still waiting on the first dollar profit. 90% of everything that I've ever started has failed. But what happened is, because I focused and I found something that I got passionate about, the 10% of the businesses is what made me the success that I am today, or have given me the opportunity to be able to speak all around the world. And so what happened is after the foreclosure and after the car repossession, I actually didn't get foreclosed on, but after the car repossession and 45 days away from foreclosure, this is what I did. And let me share with you what I learned from Napoleon Hill. I never forget, I read the book, and I read it for the first 17 times because I was looking for the answer. Because I never forget seeing a speaker, and he told me, he says, "Listen, in this book," and I read it in the first chapter, he said, in the book Think and Grow Rich, he says, "The key to happiness, success, and wealth is on every page." And so here I was, I'm reading this book because I want the shortcut, and I read it 17 different times because I'm looking, and here I was, I'm in foreclosure almost, and my car's repossessed. So I'm like, okay, well, Napoleon Hill's not telling the truth here. Because I've read this thing 17 times. And I'm looking for the secret. I'm looking for the cheat sheet. I'm looking for the cliff notes. 17 different times I read the book. And then finally, when I was ready, I read through the book. And on every page it says, "Think and Grow Rich." And I'm like, I read it 17 times. And the 18th time is when I noticed that Think and Grow Rich was on every page. Because he said every single page is a secret. And I'm looking for a formula, and I'm looking for it. And here I was, I read this book, and now the information was in my subconscious, and I started to focus. And I started to decide what it was that I wanted. And my next chapter came when I got back involved in the industry of network marketing. And network marketing, again, it's what I call the pink elephant. Those who are in traditional businesses, they look at network marketing and say, "Oh, network marketing is something for somebody who really doesn't have a good job, or maybe they don't have a good education. It's something for those people." So I started this little business and didn't have much success. My first 7 years, I never made more than $500 in any one month. in 7 years. I spent about $70,000 in personal development, going to seminars and reading up on people who had learned from Napoleon Hill. And here I was, every year I got a tax deduction, but no profits. It wasn't working for me. People say, well, why didn't you quit? Because I learned a definite major purpose. And I was focused, and I knew that if I was persistent enough, at some point in time, it was going to click. Some point in time, it was going to work for me. And just about 7.5 years ago, I received a phone call. Received a phone call from a buddy of mine who told me about a product that he knew was going to be one of the best sellers in the direct sales and home-based business industry. I was pressing him for what the product was, and I'll never forget, he ended up telling me, he says, it's coffee. Now here I am, I'm not a coffee drinker. I don't like coffee, I can't stand coffee. I don't even associate with, I never go to Starbucks. I didn't associate with people who drink coffee. And then I turned the opportunity down. Why? Because it was so common. And I was like, everybody already drinks coffee, because I started looking for an idea. I started looking for a product that I thought nobody had ever heard of. Why? I wanted to be an innovator, which means that I had to create a market if I was going to innovate. So 4.5 months go by, and I don't pursue the opportunity until I read something that Warren Buffett has to say. And he says, things that you like to do, why don't you make those things your hobby if you like to do them? But things that the world like to do, make it your business. Like, okay, well, he makes a little bit more money than I do. So his advice might be worth listening to. And so I'll never forget, I go back and I revisit the gentleman who had offered me this opportunity, offered me the product, and I tried it, and I thought it tasted pretty good, but I never tasted coffee before, so didn't have a good reference point. I gave some friends, some neighbors, and 10 of my neighbors, and 7 of them thought the product tasted good. 3 of them asked about the opportunity, and here I was. I'll never forget, just a couple of weeks later, I started this little small business in my home. Right in my home. Didn't have another store. Why? Because my elephant's pink. I didn't want to do the traditional thing anymore. I set some real big goals, and I'm going to give you 4 simple steps here of exactly how that achievement took place. But I want to share with you what the achievement was. I stuck to what it was. I had my major definition of purpose that I had, and I knew exactly who I was going to be, and I knew what I was going to do, and I just didn't know how I was going to do it. But here I was, unlikely to have this coffee business sitting in my hands, a person who don't even drink coffee, who never even drank coffee. And I never forget, I started a little coffee company, September 22nd, 2008 is when I actually started this coffee business. Right in my home, and I introduced my first 16 customers. September 22nd, 2008. That was a little over 7 years ago. But because of all the failures that I had, and many of them I haven't even had a chance to mention, because I'd be here until tomorrow talking about all the businesses that I started that failed in. But because of all the failures that I had, and of being able to think outside of the box of how to take a product to the marketplace and how to really make something happen, that was my greatest asset, was all the failures that I had. Because from September the 22nd, 2008 to September 22nd of 2013, I had actually done $1 billion in business, but I did it faster than Starbucks. I started right in my home. I did $1 billion in business faster than Apple. I did $1 billion faster than Microsoft. I did $1 billion faster than McDonald's and Burger King, all combined. And I'm not saying that to impress you, I'm saying it to impress upon you. Don't shortcut what your dreams are. Because when I started that coffee company, you know what they told me? You can't make it in coffee. Starbucks already has a market corner. And I told them, I said, I'm not looking to corner the market. All I want is 1% of the coffee industry. 1% of the coffee industry for me was $112 million per month coffee sales. That's all we want on an annual basis. I wasn't looking to take Starbucks down. And since then, we've now built an organization where we have, now approaching 2 million people around the world in 47 different countries that actually sell coffee that got started from the 16 people that I invited in my living room. And do you know out of those 16 people that I invited in my living room, do you know the majority of them told me no, it wouldn't work? But my elephant was not gray. My elephant was pink. My elephant was a completely different color. And the basis of all of that came from 4 simple principles that I want to leave you with. If there's anything I can leave you with, when I talk to people, I give them 4 principles that I govern my success by. I give them 4 principles that I always use in anything that I do. Number 1, you got to be able to picture your success. I tell people don't get what they want, you get what you picture. People say, well, how do you know people don't get what they want? I say, because every single year, around January, everybody in this room, specifically many of the adults, are going to set some goals. We call them what? New Year's resolutions. Some of the biggest goals are, I want to lose weight, I want to stop smoking, I want to make more money. And they always start by, I want. And guess what? They get exactly what they want. 10 years later, they still want to make more money, they still want to lose more weight, they still want to stop smoking. Because you don't get what you want, you get what you picture. And so what I'll tell you is that you got to be able to imagine your success. You got to be able to see it so vividly, and you got to be able to find and define exactly what it is that you want to do, and you got to see it plain as day, and allow your mind to be your navigational system to take you towards that picture. The second thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to decide what you want to give up to get the things that you want. And I never forget, I had to give up some things. See, I used to love to hang out with the fellows and things of that nature. When I got serious about becoming an entrepreneur, I couldn't do the same things that I did. I had to give up golf. I had to give up television. And I gave up golf. And I gave up golf for years, and I love to play golf. And now I've got a house on one of the most beautiful golf courses in Houston. I've got a house in California that's on a golf course, and I have 2 country club memberships. Why? Because I gave it up at one point in time. I gave up television. Gave up watching television. Why? Because there was nothing on television that I saw coming on from a programming standpoint that was going to take me towards my goal. And so I was so focused to where I wanted to go. Anything that came into my path that didn't associate with that vision, I gave it up. But you don't give it up forever. It's like an investment. Any investment, you give it up and you expect a greater return. I gave up television for about 5 years. One of my houses that I have in California, I got 17 televisions in. Why? Because I gave up television. I'm building a house right now, it's about 28,000 square feet. I think it's got 26 televisions in it. I don't watch them all, I still don't watch that much. But I gave it up. And I'm telling you this because you can do whatever it is that you want to do. You can have whatever it is that you want to have, but you got to be willing to give up a little bit of stuff. I gave up radio. I didn't want to listen to the radio because there was no music that was positive, and now I own a record label and I own a television production company. Why? Because I gave all of those things up. I had no idea that I was going to be in the music business, but I just know whatever it is that you give up, if you give it up in the right perspective, it'll come back to you. Number 3 thing that you've got to do is you've got to pick a champion. You've got to find a mentor. You've got to find somebody who's done what it is that you want to do, and you've got to duplicate exactly what they've done. And sometimes that's not so easy to find. It's not so easy to be accepted into mentorship by the mentor. But you've got to set an example of being the right protege, and I want to let you know that people don't mentor you because you need mentorship. People mentor you because you deserve mentorship. You're going to have to go out and set that example. I have people today write me every single day, Mr. Bugs, I need your help. Well, of course you do. Of course you need my help. Of course you'd like for me to talk to you. Of course you'd like for me to mentor your son. What have you done right now that's deserving of somebody separating themselves from their family and their time to invest it into you? And that's what you're going to have to do. Because I can tell you right now, every success person out there is looking for a successor. They're waiting for somebody just like you to show up and say, this is what I've done. This is what my resume is. And I'm not talking about a resume of education, but your resume of accomplishments or whatever it may be, or effort. But you're going to have to find somebody. That's the fastest way to be able to get it done, is find somebody who can teach you. The 4th thing that I'll tell you as I close out is that you're going to have to plan your work, and you're going to have to work your plan. You got to plan your work, and you got to work your plan. See, when I set out to do that $1 billion in business in that certain amount of time, I had a plan for it. I didn't just guess that I was going to be able to do it. And I wasn't competing with Starbucks. I wasn't competing with any other companies. But I looked at the marketplace, and I looked at how many different places, how many different people was actually consuming my product. And remember, I only wanted 1% of it. That's all I wanted, is 1%. And I figured that here it was, and I laid out my entire plan, and I knew exactly what I was going to do, and I made some room for error, and I knew that my plan wasn't going to go exactly as I wrote it down. But you know what? Every time I got to a part where I had a bump in the road, I made some simple adjustments, just some simple adjustments. And then you're able to go to a coach, you're able to go to that mentor and say, hey, listen, here's my challenge that I've got, here's my plan, and you two work it out together. I tell you that because I tell my son the exact same thing. I told you that what I want to share with you is the same thing I shared with my son. I'll share with you in the end what he's been able to accomplish. My son was 14 years old when he started his first music business. He set a goal, and his summer goal, he had a summer project. His summer project, because he wanted to think big, he's been around his father and his mom all his life, and he wanted to think real big, and he set a summer project to earn $100,000 for the summer. Now here's a 14-year-old kid thinking of $100,000 of earnings for the summer. I never thought like that, ever, when I was his age. But he hear us talk about numbers. For him, it wasn't like it was in comparison. For him, it was a normal number to think of, and he failed and he missed his goal. He made $60,000. And he donated 100% of that money to some families at the time when Tennessee and had tornadoes had come through and devastated some families. And we picked out some families, he flew them in, and he donated the money, and we actually chipped in another $40,000, $100,000. We gave $20,000 to 5 different families of basically teaching him also about humanity, how to give back. But he was able to start that. But you know why he started that business? Because when he was 10, he started his first company. His first company was just a little balloon company that he started, character balloons. We were at the airport. He bought a book, and this book gave instructions on how to make character balloons. We were on an airplane headed from Tampa back to Houston, Texas, and while he was on the airplane, he walked up and down the aisles and he sold all of the balloons, and that was when he was born an entrepreneur. Because I was telling him the same thing. So I never talked to my son like he was just a young kid. I talked to him all the time like he was my business partner. So we started that business, several other companies. Now he's obviously a part of the record label. He's the #1 artist, obviously, on our record label. He just started another business this summer. He's got three stores in the shopping malls today. And when he gets out of school, he has to go work at his own company while people are there full time. Why? Because these principles that I'm talking about, they work. And this group of people here, future business leaders of America, the thing I want you to understand is that there's no limitations on what you can accomplish. I believe some of the greatest inventions, I believe some of the greatest business concepts, I believe some of the biggest and best opportunities can actually be born from the group that's right here. Because I know when I sat into an auditorium just like this, nobody would have picked me out of the audience to say, this guy here is going to accomplish what he accomplished. Because everything was working against me. No college educated parents, no money to go to college. I had to get a scholarship. Didn't have anybody who could go and mentor and coach me and teach me in the business world. Didn't have any of that stuff. Didn't have all the positive mental attitude that the Napoleon Hill Foundation teaches. And all that stuff came a lot later. And you have an opportunity right now to go out and do what it is that you want to do. And I know it's early in life, and you'll have some fun, and you'll think about, your careers and things of that nature later. But my goal today is that if my message and if my story could impact just one person. Just one person. Winston Churchill said that one person with courage is a majority. I know what happened when that one person impacted my life. And today, because of our business, we created, I don't want to say we created, I didn't create it, they did the work. Up to about 100 different people who are millionaires, 46 of them who earn over $1 million in a year. Why? Because one person shared that book, Think and Grow Rich, with me that I read 17 times. And then I got the principle of definiteness of purpose, and I never gave up on my dreams. And so if there's anything that I want to leave you with, it's 2 of them. Number 1, paint your elephant whatever color you want to paint it. And number 2, don't ever give up on your dreams. I want to thank all of you for your attention. And I look forward and congratulate all of you for the success that I know you have. I want to thank the Napoleon Hill Foundation again and its entire board. Thank you guys.